Hey, this is Brenda Meller from the Enthusiastically Self-Employed podcast. I joined the Download Growth Club last year when I first launched my podcast. And my favorite part about being a Download Growth Club member is having access to an expert, to Adam, because Adam has been there, done that. And he gives you great ideas all the time, ways to improve your podcast, to improve the marketability, to grow your podcast listeners over time. And I have to admit, I haven't done all the homework that Adam recommends, but whenever I do the work that he suggests, I see the results firsthand. So if you're on the fence, if you're thinking about making the investment in the Download Growth Club, I have to say it is an investment that will definitely get you the ROI that you're looking for. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'd be happy to help you, but I hope to see you inside the Download Growth Club.
What's up, pod pals? It's your buddy Adam, and you are listening to Podcasting Business School. It's the show where I teach podcasters how to love their podcast like a hobby and build it like a business. If you're a coach, a consultant, a service provider that's looking to learn how to leverage your podcast to get more clients and build your online business, you're in the right place. Welcome to all our new listeners. I had a whole bunch of people that started listening to the show here within the last month or so. Seen a real nice spike in the downloads as we entered September. If you're new to the Podcasting Business School brand, welcome. I serve the podcasting community. I can help out with launch. I can help out with growth, and I can help out with learning how to convert listeners into your best clients. If you guys need a little bit of help with that, then use the link in the show notes or hit me up on the main website, www.podcastingbusiness.school, and click on that button that says discovery call. You can sign up for a free podcast profit potential discovery call. We can talk about how I can help you out. Today, we are talking about using strategic interviews to grow your podcast audience. All right. Now, I know this is coming out of left field. If you guys have been listening for a long time, I'm kind of I'll say it, I'm kind of the don't do so many interviews guy. And, each quarter, I'm recording this here at the start of October, and each quarter I sit back and review like, okay, what didn't go well? Where might we be missing opportunities? And in September, especially towards the end of September, I'm just kind of looking at my content and I'm going, you know what? I've only done like 3 interviews this year. I might be going too far on that side of not doing so many interviews and really doing a lot of solo episodes, which I'm still a huge fan of. Obviously, this is a solo episode. But I may be taking my 2/3 content rule a little too far. All right. So my 2/3 content rule is where I state that I want you to be the expert of your show on your show for 2/3 of your content. So if you release an episode a week, and over 3 weeks, I want at least 2 of those episodes to feature you as the expert. So solo episodes or coaching style episodes, and then 1/3 can be interviews. Well, I'm not even coming close to that 1/3. And I feel like I may need to level up. Maybe I don't get all the way to that 1/3, but maybe I get to a quarter. 25% of my episodes become interview based if they make sense. So as I've been thinking about this, I'm like, I'm going to get super strategic about this. I always am with my people that I invite to come on my show for an interview. But I wanted to do an episode where I kind of show you all how I'm breaking this down and how I'm getting super strategic about anyone that I invite to come on my show for an interview. Now, we all know that guesting on other people's podcasts is a great way to grow our audience, right? So we can definitely grow our show by being a guest on other people's shows. And I'm going to talk just a little bit about guesting on other people's shows first. It's all going to tie together. Don't worry, pals. So when it comes to being a guest on other people's podcasts, one thing I 100 million % know is that the spammy emails don't work. Where either you, or even worse, you pay somebody to send spammy emails that say, "Hey, Adam would be the greatest guest of all time." Been getting a lot of dentists emailing me, or they're like VA or somebody's like, "Dr. So-and-so would love to be on your show." And they don't even know what podcast, I have or anything like that. And half the time they don't use the right name. I famously, on Instagram talked about the people that kept on emailing me over and over and again, calling me Amanda. Amanda, why aren't you emailing me back? Amanda, Amanda, Amanda. And I just let it roll on as long as they kept on doing it because I thought it was pretty funny and it gave me some great Instagram content. But those emails don't work. I get a dozen of those. And for a while, I would just delete them. But now I read them to see if they have anything funny that I can use for content and make fun of them in my Instagram or on the show. That's the only reason I open them. I mean, I never would even consider saying yes to any of these people because they don't fit my checklist, which I'm about ready to go through. Now, what does work well and what has worked really, really well for me in the past, I'm going to start utilizing this again the fourth quarter of this year and into 2025, is what I call my invite first strategy. So if I want to be on someone's show, I don't, randomly email them or voice DM them and go, "Hey, I would love to be on your podcast," because again, that lumps us into the spam email group. What I do is I invite them on my show first. I reach out and I go, "Hey, I love what you got cooking with your show. I'm a big fan. I've listened to several episodes. I would love to have you on my show to talk about X, Y, and Z." A great example of this, and I'll use this relationship as an example throughout this episode. About this time last year, I reached out to Amanda Walker from Best Damn Coach podcast. I had legitimately listened to just dozens of her interviews. I heard her first as a guest on the Cubicle to CEO podcast, Ellen Yin's show, who's a friend and a client. And I, reached out to Amanda. I was like, "I love your show. I love what you're all about. I want you to come on the show because I think you can deliver on frameworks and building online coaching businesses and all this cool stuff." And she came on my show and we had a great session. And, down the road, she had me on her show. We've collaborated a couple of times. She's the one that came on my show and interviewed me for episode 500. I did the same for her show. So we've been on each other's shows a couple of times. We're great collaboration partners. But that's just a great example of, I didn't reach out to her and go, "Hey, I would be a great guest for your show." I mean, at this point in where podcasting is at, not only does that feel spammy, it feels like a little bit like conceited, like I'm a little arrogant, where it's just like it rubs me the wrong way when people send me those emails. Like they just assume that I'm so desperate for a guest, which I'm not. That I feel like the era of podcasting that we're entering, scrambling and worrying about never not having anybody to talk to isn't a thing anymore. Back in 2015, that kind of marketing worked because people were like scrambling, going, I don't have enough to say myself. I got to find people to interview." But I feel like we're getting past that. All right. Podcasting is evolving as an industry, and even newer podcasters quickly figure out like you're not going to run out of people to talk to that want to come on your show. So, and then with solo episodes, that's another form of content that's really easy to produce that you don't need a guest on. All right. So again, what doesn't work well, spammy emails. What does work well, my invite first strategy. We still want to follow my 2/3 content rule. So 2/3 of your content, you're going to be featured as the expert of your show, solo episodes, coaching style episodes. But 1/3, let's use my ideal guest checklist strategy to strategically invite people to be on your show and do an interview based episode. All right. So here are the check boxes that I need to check when I'm inviting someone else on my show. Like these are musts. If you're going to be strategic and not just randomly say yes to people that send spammy emails or randomly just grab somebody that seems like it makes a good fit, that's one thing. That's just producing content. But if you really want to get strategic with your guests that come on your show with your interview based episodes, then I've got 4 simple check boxes to consider. All right. Maybe use all of them. Maybe you don't. Now, okay. First one, the person I'm considering to be a guest on my show for me, this is a must. They must have a podcast that I could potentially be a guest on, that I want to be a guest on. All right. So half these spammy people that send me these emails, they don't have a show. So they're automatically out, not even considered. So if I'm going to have somebody on my show, there has to be that potential with my invite first strategy where I invite somebody on the show, like I did with Amanda Walker. We made friends. We had great content. We had a great connection there. We produced some really cool content. And she said, "Hey, you should come on my show." And that's happened a few times. And we collaborate back and forth. So that's my strategy. And that strategy doesn't work if I invite somebody on and they don't have a show that I want to be on. All right. Now, if there's that ultra famous person that's your hero and you invite them on, okay, whatever. But that's not like going to happen all the time. So most of the time, we want to have this checklist working in our favor. So that's the first one for me. They must have a podcast that I could potentially be a guest on. All right, the next one, they must be actively building an email list. Like when I go to their website, I want to see lead magnets. I want to see, activity that seems like, okay, they're building their email list, or that they talk about it on their show. I will listen to several episodes of their show. Like I will spend time on this because I don't want to waste my time on a relationship that isn't optimal for being strategic as far as interviews go. So I want to see that they seem to be actively building email lists. Go on the website. Maybe they got a newsletter, they've got a blog, or just they talk about it on their show like I do about building an email list. The next checkbox, I want to see one strong social media following. I don't care if it's 500 or 5,000 or 5 million. I just want to see that they've got something cooking and they're not like 102 followers and crickets as far as comments and things like that. So if I go on LinkedIn or Instagram or Facebook or whatever, threads, I want to see that they're active on a platform that if we collaborate, we could potentially take advantage of. But also if they're going to share it out, like I want them to share it out to a few people. Like this is important. You can define what strong social media following is. And I think you should define that based off of where you're currently at. So if you have 100 people on Instagram and you have a guest that's got 200 people on Instagram, that's a hell yeah. They have double what you have. All right. So consider that. And I think with all these check boxes, again, we can't overthink it, but try to find people that are at least at where you're at or a little bit ahead of where you're at. So maybe you've got 100 people on your email list and they've got 150 people or 500 people. 500 would be a huge win. All right. And down the road, if you've got 10,000 people on your email list and someone has 500 people, maybe that's not as attractive to you. I'm not telling you to be all judgy on people and beat up on the small guys, but so be realistic with where you're at. And again, these are strategic, ideal fit guests. This is the strategic, ideal fit guest checklist. All right. So this is ideal. Will every single person check every single box? No. And that's up to you. I'm just telling you kind of what I look for. All right. Next one. This is an important one. This is really important. This is the last one on the 4 checklist. They cannot be a direct competitor with the programs and services that they offer compared to what I offer. If they offer the exact same thing, I'm not having them on my show, period. And you hear about all this like podcasting, it's all about happy collaboration and all this stuff. But I see so many people that fight. We fight hard for expert positioning on our show. Don't give that up by, inviting. I see it happen all the time. They invite somebody in, similar product and service, and they are a hell of a lot better marketing than the host. Oops. All right. The host may even have a better pricing program service. You invite somebody in that's lesser in that, but a better marketer than you. And they just, you let the wolf into the hen house or whatever the saying is. All right. So let's not do that. You can support them and be friends with them and be colleagues and all that. But it's just like, and if maybe they reach out to you like, listen, we have competing services. It just doesn't make sense for my business model. And if they don't understand that, then that's not your fault. That makes sense from a business, perspective. All right. Now, let me myth bust on a guesting situation. This is one of the biggest myths in the podcasting industry. And this myth goes as follows. If I invite a famous person onto my show, it will just explode my downloads. I've never seen this happen, ever. Now, if that famous person shares it out to every single, their email list, and they're talking about it all the time on their show and social media, or it leads to an opportunity for you to be on their show, then that's a different situation. But the myth is that I have famous actor, famous comedian, famous politician, famous whatever just appear on my show, it automatically explodes growth. And this is not true. All right. Not true. Again, unless they go, hey, you should come on my show also. That's a totally different opportunity. So again, don't necessarily aim for fame when it comes to, having somebody on your show. That's why I have this checklist. I'm like, is this a person that has a show that I could potentially be on? Do they have an active email list? Are they building an email list? Do they have a strong social media following? Are they not a direct competitor? Those are more important to me than famous person. All right. So if we're going to get strategic, those are the points that we want to focus on. All right. Next logical question that I know that you all have. Where the heck do we find these people, Adam? Let me tell you my simple strategy that'll get you a foothold to start with. All right. And I've talked about this before, but I don't feel like I've talked about it in depth or recently. So one of my favorite ways to find guests, and my best way or the best use case example of this is when I had my health show, the $1 Million Mission. I crushed it with this strategy, and it started working so well. I hired my first VA to help me out with this strategy. So the strategy goes as follows. Again, we're looking for ideal fit guests to invite to be on our show that fit our checklist. I go to Apple and Spotify top 200 rankings in my category. So with my health show, it was like nutrition or fitness. Nowadays, it would be more entrepreneurship. So let's use my health show as an example. I would go on nutrition, and I would search the top 200 list in the nutrition subcategory on Apple Podcasts, and I would look for shows that fit all the checkboxes on my checklist on the top 200 list. So if somebody makes the top 200 list, they're doing something. They have done something. They have some traction. They are ranked. You are usually not. They're probably in a better situation than you are. Now, what we want to do is start reaching out to these people, inviting them to come on your show using the, invite them to be on the show first strategy that I talked about earlier. And another critical mistake that I see people making, they start with like the top 5 ranked people. That's not going to work. Start at the bottom of the list. So, if it's a top 200 list, let's look at 150 to 200 and start scanning through those and go, which shows seem to check all the checklists? First off is like, would I be a great fit for being a guest on their show? If they don't check that box, and keep on moving. All right. Find 5 to 10 that seem to be like, okay, I could be a great fit on that show. Seems like they're a little bit ahead of where I am currently with my show, download wise. Go to their website, look at their like business model. Are they building email lists? Go to their social. Are they active on social? Does it look like it's not like paid, like they bought all their follower type of social situation? Just start investigating those things. And if you get people checking check boxes, then start listening to some episodes. If that feels like a good fit, check out the program's products and services, make sure they're not competing, and then start inviting. So I hired a VA. I trained a VA on how to do this for me with my health podcast. And I would have them just go through all those check boxes, and they would come back and go, hey, this person, this person, this person all qualify. Then I would listen to some episodes. I go, okay, this sounds awesome. Let's invite all 3 of them, or this one or that one. And they would send out the invite email on my behalf, inviting them to come on the show. And within an 18-month window, I had so many people out of that top 200 come on my show. And I was booked on, I would have people on my show, and then I would come back and get the invite back about 50% of the time. So I was on so many top 200, top 50 health shows. My downloads exploded with this. So I actually use this again as a guesting strategy by inviting first. It's a longer play. We're building relationships, but so much more comes out of this where you can do things on the backside. There's so many collaboration opportunities. We're going to talk about that here in a second that come out of this strategy. And it's just so much better. Is it easier to send a spammy, bulk email or hire somebody to do that? Sure. But the fruit that develops at the end of this process is so much greater than spammy emails. All right. Now, so once people are saying yes to coming on your show, we need to talk about optimizing our onboarding for guests and our onboarding questions. So I will send people my Calendly link. So, hey, grab a spot. We ask all the normal questions that you would ask as far as like, their bio and, whatever you want to ask for an interview. I keep it pretty short because I kind of know what I want to talk about. But let me give you 5 things to think about asking. You don't have to ask all these or ask them in the way that I'm stating them, but I want to just plant these seeds to optimize your onboarding, to kind of plant seeds for the post-interview chat where you talk about collaborating. All right. So one of the questions that I'm going to ask, moving forward is I'm going to ask about email list or collaboration opportunities. So I may ask a question like, do you have an active email list? Usually I'll already kind of know that they do. And would you be interested in a potential opportunity for me to sponsor your email list or a newsletter? So I'll ask about sponsoring a newsletter or an email send, or I'll ask about uh, email list swaps. So they send an email promoting to their list. I send an email promoting them to my list. So I'll ask something along those lines. Um, Ask about affiliate and referral opportunities. So if you have a killer program, and again, you're not competing services, you could have something in there that says, hey, my core program is blah, 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 blah. Here's who it helps. I've got a whatever affiliate commission for referrals. Would you be interested in discussing becoming an affiliate? Check yes or no. That's something that you could potentially ask. You could ask if, and I wouldn't be direct, but you could say, like, let's say you're a social media marketing business. You could ask a question like, do you have a specific social media marketing strategy? Have you ever considered delegating social media marketing to an outside service? And if yes, would you be interested in discussing that? So you kind of plant a seed. So for me, I could be like, do you have a podcast? I already know yes. Would you be interested in discussing how I can help with your podcast growth or something like that? I could, kind of customize things depending on the situation. So asking questions to hint at they may potentially need a service like yours. You could ask a question, but these last two, I'd be kind of delicate with how you do this. I wouldn't come out and be really direct. I'd probably have something like, I speak on a lot of podcasts on the topics of podcast growth and turning listeners into clients. If you ever have an opportunity where you've got a spot on your show open, or if you do a live or virtual event, I would love for you to consider, talking to me about that. And you could have like a checkbox that says, yes, I understand. Like, you're not going to be like, will you have me on? Answer now. But just planting seeds. And that may be going a little too far for some of you. And I get that. I'm debating whether I put that in there or not, because a lot of times it works. The system works without that, and it just starts to happen. So that may not be necessary, but I would not just put a question that's like, can I be a guest on your show? Are you looking for guests like me? I'm probably not going to do something like that. It's going to be more like, I speak on a lot of shows about, please keep me in mind if you have any opportunities for podcast guest seats, live events, or virtual events. And like a checkbox that says, yes, I understand this. Sounds cool. Worst. All right. This just popped up into my mind. The most awkward guest pitch I ever got. I had somebody that invited me onto their show. They were live streaming while we're still live, still recording. They asked if they could be a guest on my show. And it was super weird. And I said yes. And it was not a good interview. And I did not air it. It was super weird. I was like, oh my God. So I knew they weren't a good fit. That was probably questionable going into the interview that I did on their show. And then by the end of it, I was like, this is not a good fit. And then they popped the question and I was like, oh my God, they just did that. Sure. That sounds awesome. And I didn't know what to do. I did not know what to do. So I just said yes. And then I recorded it. It was not good. They were in their car driving around during the interview. It was not good. And I did not see the light of day. So anyway, I just remembered that. All right. So those are the important onboarding questions. Now let's wrap up with post-interview positive outcome goals. what are we looking to have happen on the other side of this interview? I mean, if it just breaks down to it, you had a cool person come on your show, you've got a connection there, you made friends, and you created cool content together. Hopefully, they serve your audience, and that helps keep your listeners happy. That's a great outcome. But since we've been so strategic with who we chose to invite on and the onboarding process and everything, hopefully we can check one of these other boxes off that I'm about ready to give you. Obviously, one great positive outcome goal would be that they invite you to come on their show. That's awesome. They go, hey, this is a great interview. I'm really looking for people like yourself to come and speak on my show. Let's get you booked. Another positive outcome, they become a client, guest a client. This happens all the time where, you know, I could have somebody on and they're like, yeah, I do have a show, but really struggling with growth. Do you do consultation on growth? Well, yes, I do. Allow me to help. All right. So that's happened quite a few times. Um, Third thing, positive outcome. They become a referral or affiliate partner. Awesome. Awesome. I just launched the online business academy for podcasters. I got a lot of referral partners, affiliate partners that are helping me promote that. Awesome. These are all relationships I've built within the podcasting community. Next, a newsletter paid ad or a newsletter swap. So maybe they say, yeah, I would love to discuss an opportunity for you to sponsor my weekly newsletter. Awesome. Let's talk about that. Or they want to do a newsletter swap where I promote them in mine, they promote me in theirs. That's a great outcome. Another great outcome goal would be a live stream on social media together. So they've got a giant Instagram. Let's go live on Instagram, do a follow-up interview on the day after, the evening after the episode goes live. And I've used that strategy a lot, especially with my health account, growing that. It was awesome. Like I would go live with these people that have hundreds of thousands, like they're fitness influencers. I'm going live with them and I'd pick up hundreds of Instagram followers in a 15-minute IG live because that person's got 500,000 IG followers and then they pop over into my side of the equation. So going live on social media together, great positive outcome. And then another one is they invite you to speak at live or virtual events that they're hosting. This happens all the time. You conduct a great interview. Maybe you get invited back on their show. Collaboration starts happening back and forth. And now you're speaking at each other's live or virtual events. You're talking to their mastermind. They're talking to your mastermind. Just the collaboration starts to happen. Really, for me, the reason that I'm like trying to just nudge up the amount of interviews that I do ultimately comes down to that collaboration. Like having very strategic guests on that I want to get to know, that I want to build a relationship, that I would love to collaborate with in some way, shape, or form. And so it's a respect thing with this invite first strategy. I want to earn the relationship instead of the spammy email. Let's pay somebody to just blast it all out there and hope that we're on lots of shows. That's not a strategic. That's not effective, in my opinion. So hopefully this episode has given you some clarity on guesting, kind of giving you permission to use that 1/3 of your content for strategic guesting. Maybe you like a few of my onboarding questions. Maybe some of them you're not ready to ask yet. I totally get it. All right, I feel a little bit nervous even saying like I'm going to ask them, about certain things. So like, are they looking for a guest like me? I probably will not ask that question just to put all the cards on the table. But now you know how to find these people on the top 200 list. Start with the back 50 on Apple or Spotify. Start your research there. And we have the checklist to optimize who we're inviting, right? And we're not worried about being famous. We're worried about, do they have a podcast you could be a guest on? Do they have an active email list building strategy? Are they strong on social? Are they not a direct competitor? All right. So I'm excited to get feedback on this. Let me know if you like this one. Honestly, we're going on 28.5 minutes here. I'm like, this one's going to be a 5-minute episode. It's just about, strategic interview opportunities. And my notes just got robust all of a sudden. But I liked it. I like the way this one turned out. Hopefully this is helpful for you. And and just another kind of lesson learned is obviously in the last year, especially, I've been going hardcore with the solos. and it is going really well. And I do have a lot of expert positioning in my show, but sometimes like every 90 days, I try to challenge myself and think about like, where are the cracks in the system? What isn't working as well as it could or used to work? I challenge myself to see things from a different light, and I'm in different masterminds and things like that. And I'll ask people like, "Hey, shoot holes in what I'm doing right now. What do you think?" And this is just something that popped up. I'm like, I feel like I should be doing a few more interviews just for the collaboration and relationship building opportunities. So that's what motivated me. Hopefully, this motivates you, kind of gives you permission to use that 1/3 for strategic interviews, and you can grow your show. Now, again, if you guys are needing some help with podcast growth, for monetization strategies, or some of you are just trying to get out there, stop podcrastinating, and launch your dang show, go to my website, podcastingbusiness.school. There's a 4-minute video overview there that shows, talks about who I help and how I help them. And then click on that discovery call button, get on my calendar, and we can do a podcast profit potential discovery call and discuss how I can help you out. Pod Pals, I appreciate you. I'm going to send you out into the world wishing you health, happiness, and many downloads. We'll see you next time. If you need a little bit of help with your podcast launch, growth, or monetization strategy, head on over to my website, www.podcastingbusiness.school, and get signed up for a free podcast profit potential discovery call. During this free 20-minute discovery call session, I'm going to analyze your podcasting brand and tell you where I think you're missing on an opportunity for profits. Next, I'm going to tell you exactly what I suggest that you do as your next step. If I've got an offer that would help you accelerate the process, we can discuss working together as well. So head on over to my website, www.podcastingbusiness.school, and click on the Discovery Call button to schedule your free podcast profit potential discovery call.